So one of the things that's very important to us here at IPG Building Co. is the client experience. And we actually just ran into this on a project that we're currently working at. We had a few design selections that needed to be made, and we were trying to get answers so that way we know what to communicate to our trade partners. And in that, our team actually suggested that we just wait and do a in-person walkthrough with the client. That way they can actually get a chance to see the space, because we were at that point finished with the rough framing portion of it. So that's exactly what we did. We were patient and we scheduled a walkthrough with the client in person, and it was actually very fruitful and it was very insightful. And the reason for it being is because there's a different feeling that you get when you're actually walking through the project in person and you're seeing it laid out as opposed to just a set of architectural plans. So one of the things that we had ran into is when we were doing the walkthrough with them, they actually suggested that they like to read and they wanted to get a couple of sconces on each side of the bed, so that way they could have some nightlight in order for us to read. So then obviously that triggered us asking a million questions to make sure that they get exactly what they want. So with that, we asked them, well, how do you want to turn those lights off? Do you want to get up out of bed, or do you want to be able to just roll off to the side and be able to turn the night lights off that way? So that way we know exactly what to communicate to our electrician, because that was a change that the client had requested. And we were more than happy to do it, and especially at the point that we were still in the rough framing portion. The reason for it being is because it would have been a lot more expensive to cut out sheetrock, move insulation, run new wires, and then have to go back and patch and then color match after we're completed with that. So it was very insightful and very helpful to be able to get them in at that stage, because it actually ended up saving them money on that change. And one of the other questions that we had asked them was, well, how big is your bed? And I know that that comes off as kind of a weird question, but there's a logical reasoning behind it. So I explained to them, hey, I just need to know enough information so I know, because if you have a twin bed, and that's what we're actually installing the sconces to on either side, so they can be right above your nightstands. If you do end up in the future upsizing to a queen or a king, well, then the sconces are going to be right somewhere inside the bed on either corner, and they're no longer going to actually be on over the nightstands. And I know it kind of seemed like a weird question that your contractor is asking you, hey, well, you know, what kind of bed size do you have? But I explained to the client, like, hey, this is the reason why I'm asking, and they understood it and they were very grateful of it. And I explained to her, hey, now that I know that you have a queen, that's good, because now we know exactly how far off we need to install each of the sconces, so that way they can be right above, you know, the nightstand. And I told her, hey, are you ever planning in the future, you know, to upsize? Because if so, then it's just going to be better for us to plan for that now, so it's not going to end up costing you more money to come in and move the sconces over more, so that way they can be over the nightstand and not on the corner of the queen bed. So I explained to her why I was asking the question, and she understood, and you know, she was grateful about the fact that we were going through that and already thinking ahead on that. And then another thing that we did as well is our estimator, he was actually on site with us because we needed confirmation on the kitchen cabinets. So what he actually did is he pulled up the plans, which are actually the 3D sketches on where the cabinets are actually going to lay. And what he did is he pulled up each individual wall, and then he showed them right in front of the wall exactly where the cabinets are going, where their exhaust hood for the range is going to go, where the stove is going to be placed, and then where the recessed microwave and the actual cabinets were going to be on the lowers. So they were able to see that in person, you know, get an idea on exactly what is going to go on each wall, and then we were able to make a decision. Then it's better to do it during that point in time in case there is any changes that need to be made. We can make on the field adjustments before we start closing everything up, and just giving them the opportunity to actually walk through it in the space and visualize it in person, as opposed to just, you know, getting PDF files sent over, and then you're looking at it on your phone or on your computer, you really don't grasp the entirety of the project. So that's why we perform those, and that is just, you know, one of those things that's part of the client experience. And another thing that we'll do is, as we mentioned on the estimating, we have different gates. During the portion of construction, we also have different gates because the color selections that they chose them in a specific light setting that was not in the actual space itself. So once we actually prime all the drywall, we'll actually paint some color samples on the wall so they can see it and actually visualize what it looks like in the space as well. So that way, if they needed to make any adjustments, we didn't already order 15 gallons of paint that is not going to be used anymore. So we'll go ahead and buy some of the color samples for them, be able to paint it on the actual prime drywall in the actual space, and then have another walkthrough with them at that point too, to make sure that they are in fact happy with the colors. And if not, then we'll just make the adjustment, get some different samples, and then get their final approval on the colors that they're actually happy with. So this project in particular was it turned into a full gut remodel. So this is actually a restoration project. So they experienced a house fire, and during that process, we had to do a lot of communication with the insurance adjusters. One of the things that the insurance adjuster had requested was doing their asbestos test. And unfortunately, that did come out to be positive. So now we had to go through the process of hiring a company that is licensed for abatement so they can actually remove all of the asbestos. And that's where it turned into a full gut remodel because we had to completely tear everything out and we were just down to the bare studs. That process was a little unique, I would say, because the homeowner has currently been at the house for, it'll be a year from the time that we actually finish and turn over the project back to her. So it's a little bit difficult for the client because they have to be displaced from a home that they've lived at for many, many years, and to leave for a year, it's a little difficult, especially putting yourself in their shoes and understanding the experience that they're going through. But we're trying to make it as easy as possible, and they're going to come back into a fresh home that they know for sure doesn't have any remaining traces of asbestos, because we have done extensive amounts of remediation to make sure that everything is completely out of there. So they'll have a completely uncontaminated house, and they're going back with everything brand new in the house as well. So it's going to be the night and day difference from the time that they experience that tragic event to the time that they move back into the house and they have it completely finished. So down in the basement, we actually had to add an egress window there, which was actually a blessing in disguise, because come to find out, after actually being in the property itself during some heavy rainfall that we experienced, we noticed that both windows were actually leaking. So we ended up adding an egress window in the basement in one of the bedrooms, which is now actually going to be classified as a true bedroom because they have a means of egress. And we ended up going through and actually unclogging the drain on the other window that they had, because it just wasn't, it was done correctly at the time, but due to erosion and all sorts of dirt and debris getting in the pipe, it actually ended up clogging it out. So we ended up going ahead and having our team that installed the egress window go ahead and get that unclogged for the client as well. So now they have the peace of mind that they'll have a completely dry basement. And it's good that we caught it at that time too, because the basement is going to be completely finished. And the last thing that we need is for them to experience, aside from fire damage, now they're experiencing water damage, and that's another insurance claim. So it's good that we caught it now. They'll have the peace of mind, and we've actually experienced some pretty heavy rainfall, and the basement is completely dry now. So thankfully we completely fixed that issue for them, so they won't have another insurance claim for water damage in the future. So with that, it was a little bit of a charge, of course, to the client for having that egress window go in there, but at the end of the day, that little short-term value that they, spent their hard work money on is actually going to create a lot more value for them when they do come to time to sell the property, because now they have another bedroom that they're actually able to the list of properties. So that's ultimately going to end up increasing the property value of the home because they added another full bedroom in the property as well. So short term did cost them a little bit, but the long term gains on the actual monetary value of the property is going to be a lot higher, just because now they actually do have a true classified bedroom in the basement.